Hey, everybody. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to Pep Talk, the podcast that gives you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help us, God, where we take these complex health and wellness and medical conversations, break them down, make them real simple, easily digestible for you to understand. And then we give you some action steps that you can take to improve the quality of your life, your health, and the health of the loved ones in your community. And if you're a practicing physician, and I know we have lots of physicians that listen to the Pep Talk podcast every day, it helps you take better care of your patients in your community. So I'm your host, Dr. Eric Naputi. I'm going to take you down a journey today. We're going to talk about something that is all over social media. It's been over social media for several years now. And I just want to make sure that you understand the truth about lectins. I get questions all the time. People say, hey, Dr. Eric, I see all this information out there on social media about lectins, and certain doctors are saying that lectins are the cause of leaky gut syndrome and that lectins shouldn't be eaten. What's the deal with lectins? What are they? How do they, cause problems, and what should we do about it? So let's break this conversation down. There's a very well-known cardiologist who has turned, let's just say, leaky gut enthusiast, who's all over social media telling people to, stay away from lectins. And I would agree that lectins are a problem for a large demographic of people. But just to make a blanket statement that lectins are bad for everybody is not entirely true. So I want to go through the process of what lectins are. I'm going to dive into the debate on the topic of nutrition, of lectins. These plant-based proteins, which is what lectins are, have really been the subject to a lot of controversy and really curiosity over the past couple of years, and especially when it comes to inflammatory conditions, hyperhistamine responses, and other issues, especially with people who have unique genetic makeups. Okay. So what are lectins? Lectins are, first of all, they're very common. They're proteins that are found naturally in most plant-based foods. And there's been a big push, by the way, over, I'll tell you, the last 10 years or so for individuals to move to a plant-based diet. I will tell you that certain demographics of people, based off of their genetic predispositions and their gut microbiome, do more favorably with a plant-based diet. But there are some that are out there that absolutely unequivocally do not. In fact, quite the opposite. These are foods, particularly grains, legumes, certain vegetables like tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, and potatoes. By the way, tomatoes, eggplants, certain potatoes have a lot of nicotine in them as well. Nicotine is a very healthy thing for individuals to get into their diet regularly. However, if you have a lectin sensitivity, that's an issue. Okay. So lectin really serves as a defense mechanism for plants, right? I mean, plants and animals have protective mechanisms to ward off predators, right? That's that's the key for survival. How do you protect yourself and protect your offspring? So lectin serves as a defense mechanism, helping plants fend off pests, diseases, other issues. But lectin enters, when it gets in the human digestive system, it's sometimes confined to the cell membrane, especially in the gut, in the small intestine area. And if you remember, we talk a lot about leaky gut syndrome, that 95% of the global population has some level of degree of, whether it's very minimal, mild issues, or it's full-blown irritable bowel disease, Crohn's, colitis, colon cancers, etc. There's a wide scale or range of that. If individuals have leaky gut, or if they have genetic predispositions like methylation problems in their genes, like MTHFR, like COMT, like VDR gene imbalances, then we're going to have gut inflammation, and it's going to increase gut permeability, which is really truly what leaky gut syndrome is. And it can really cause some severe issues, but not all lectins are harmful. Most foods that contain lectins are rich in nutrients, fibers, and antioxidants. So cutting all those out of your system really isn't the best thing that you can do. So why is the controversy there? So lectins have a unique ability to bind with carbohydrate structures in the gut. It makes it really sticky inside there. And this can disrupt and trigger, inflammation. And inflammation in the gut can cause leaky gut. And inflammation in the gut can cause inflammation in the cells, which can cause inflammation in the organs and tissues, which can cause symptoms and ultimately adaptive physiology, which leads to diseases. So as a result, because of the prevalence of leaky gut, because of the prevalence of methylation issues in genetics, we've really kind of gone down the road of a lectin-free or a low lectin type of a diet, especially individuals that have hyperhistamine responses, really any sign and symptom of leaky gut. But I'm telling you, if you correct the leaky gut, you do the right things for that, and you adjust and adapt your lifestyle, if you have methylation disorders, then you're not going to have a problem with lectins, especially if you have the right probiotics and the right enzymes that you're supplementing. There's a flip side to this, okay? Many lectin foods really have a lot of nutrients and are very safe to have. And a lot of people, when they avoid those, actually become malnourished. Some people's metabolic DNA is set up for, they need more protein from meat. Some people need more carbohydrates. Some people need more fats. That's why running a test to measure your genetic outcome, and this is the one that I use and recommend. It's the Biolimitless DNA Analysis, the Discovering DNA Kit. You can find this on our website. You can find it on biolimitless.com, but it helps you understand your potential genetic sensitivities to lectins, enzyme deficiencies, and et cetera. Now, there are important things to know that not all lectins are created equal. Some lectins are highly inflammatory, and others are less problematic and can be easily neutralized by cooking or even soaking those lectins in water, or even fermenting those lectins, and they can really help. Like, for instance, soaking and using pressure cookers for beans. You've heard the phrase, beans, the magical fruit. The more you eat, the more you toot. The more you toot, the better you feel. You understand that, right? Well, there's a lot of health benefits to beans, to legumes, to certain types of lectins, but most people can't handle and process them. So if you soak the beans and then you cook them in a pressure cooker, it's a lot safer and easier on the gut. And if you use sprouted grains and fermented vegetables, these are also very effective methods to lower the lectin susceptibility to cause inflammation in the body, especially in the gut. So avoiding lectins entirely, I'm not a fan of, all right? But I'm also a big fan of you testing your own body. So one thing you can do is try a personal test. We call it an elimination provocation test. So grab some lectin-based foods that you think might be problematic for you. Maybe it's beans, maybe it's lentils, maybe it's some type of nightshade like tomatoes or something, whatever it may be. What I want you to do is I want you to avoid that food completely for 5 to 7 days. And then after 5 to 7 days, I want you to eat a couple servings a day for about 3 days of that. I want you to avoid the food, and then I want you to challenge your system with eating 3 days or so of good servings of that, healthy daily servings, once or twice a day of those foods, to challenge one at a time. Okay, don't pick 3 or 4 or 5 to do at once. Pick one at a time so that you can identify how you feel after eating, beans for 3 days, or lentils for 3 days, or some nightshade, fruit or vegetable. This will give you an observable idea of, do these foods bother me? And then you can go down the pathway of, what can I do so that I don't have the problems with these foods? You should be able to eat tomatoes. You should be able to eat eggplants. You should be able to eat all these things. But if you can't, there's something going on genetically, and most likely enzymatically, and most likely from a microbiome standpoint. The second thing you can do is cooking, because cooking matters. Using cooking methods like pressure cooking, Soaking or fermenting can reduce lectins and make the foods easier to digest. You should be having at least 1 to 2 servings per day of some type of fermented food. If you do that, that can literally be a game changer for your microbiome. We have hundreds of trillions of cells in and on our body that are bacteria and funguses that we symbiotically coexist with. And the quality and health of our genetic expression and our cellular function is directly tied to the health of that good bacteria. And because of physical, chemical, and emotional stresses in life, that bacteria, the good bacteria, goes down and bad bacteria increases, which leads to cellular dysfunction and ultimately leads to autoimmune disorders and other problems we have. So tweaking the cooking methods is huge. Number 3, variety is a huge key. Incorporating different types of foods and paying attention to how you feel after eating them. If after you eat a meal, you get really tired, there's something in that food that's stressing your body out. Your body says, what do you want me to do? Keep us awake and keep functioning? Or do you want me to kind of rest and digest this food so that we can process it because it's hard on the system? If your mouth gets really sticky or you get like a lot of thick mucus after you eat, there probably is a problem with that food. Number 3, if you have a hyperhistamine response, if you get itchy or your skin breaks out or you get reds in certain areas after you eat, those are signs of a histamine or inflammatory response due to those lectins. So there is a genetic predisposition to lectin sensitivity. And this is something I really want to talk to you about. So there are a couple genes. Remember, in the genetic aspect of our body, we're talking about something called single nucleotide polymorphisms, or SNPs. SNPs measure your clean genes and your dirty genes. A clean gene is a gene that's firing and functioning like it's supposed to. A dirty gene is just not working. It's a glitch in the system, if you will. And as long as you take lifestyle modifications, you can overcome that glitch and you can work through the physiology to help your body work more effectively. One of those genes is called the MTHFR gene, which is a methyl hydrofolate reductase enzyme. And this supports reducing inflammation, detoxification. It's a really important gene. If you have that, you need to avoid gluten like it's the plague. You need to watch the certain lectins in your system. You need to be on a plant-based multi-enzyme. Some people need to be on a DOA enzyme, which is a DAO enzyme, enzyme, which helps with histamine responses. And you should have a methylated B12 and a methylated folate and take B6 regularly. The second gene that could be problematic is a FUT2 gene, FUT2. This gene is also an enzyme-related gene. It regulates really gut microbiome and the mucosal layers. Mucus protects us. Too much mucus kills us, okay? And most people have an overproduction of mucus because they're eating certain foods and have excess stress in their system. If you have the FUT2 gene, you better make sure that you're eating a solid prebiotic, a solid probiotic. I use a formula called Master Microbiotics that has spore-based bacteria in it. I took the 7 microbes and fungi that are normally in the blue zones of the world, put it into a patented delivery system that has a 99% deliverability into the small intestine that really helps support gut microbiome. But the other big things is having food like aloe vera and even chia seeds to strengthen the gut lining. If you have this FUT2 gene imbalance, lectins are going to bother you. And so are a lot of sugars and fruits. Fruits are going to convert to sugar quicker in those individuals. Having a DAO, which is a diamine oxidase gene, that's problematic. It's an enzyme that breaks down histamine in the gut. When you have lectins and your skin breaks out, you get a rash, you have eczema, that's usually a histamine response. And a lot of times women will notice this more during their cycle. either right before their cycle or right after their cycle, they'll have an increase in symptoms, gut issues, skin breakouts, and etc. And you need to get on a DAO, a diamine oxidase enzyme daily. That's a game changer for people. Another gene is interleukin 6 gene, which is known as IL-6. This is a pro-inflammatory cytokine gene. Individuals who have a gene imbalance with this, it's basically going too fast and it's going to cause chronic inflammatory issues. So eating foods that have omega-3 fish oils in them, curcumin, having resveratrol, that helps really modulate interleukin 6. The next one is a gene called TNFA, which is tumor necrosis factor alpha. The function of this, it's an inflammatory cytokine, so it's an immune responding gene, but it also responds to gut irritation because the gut associated lymphatic tissue is really the genesis of like 80 to 90% of the immune system. If you've got that, you should consider certain compounds like quercetin or quercetin, however you want to say it. Curcumin, green tea extract is really powerful for those people, and avoiding lectins and having a multi-enzyme and a spore-based probiotic. And then the last gene is a gene called human leukocyte antigen, which is HLA, and their variants. The HLA SNP particularly deals with higher lectin sensitivity. So if you have the HLA positive, there also are blood tests that correlate with this, HLA blood test and ANA, which ANA is a blood test where most rheumatologists will measure for autoimmune issues. They go symbiotically. ANA and ALA go together. And if you'll remove lectins and avoid foods, that can cause issues with this and take a supplement called super oxidase dismutase or SOD, that's a massive impact that can really, truly help the body. So look, lectin is real. Lectin can be a problem for people, but usually only if you have genetic predispositions and your gut microbiome is not working like it's supposed to, and you're not producing enzymes that your body should be producing regularly and actively. So listen, go through this podcast, go back and watch it and share it with your friends and listen to it again. Take notes on this thing and start putting this into place. Listen, knowledge is power, but wisdom is taking this knowledge and applying it to your life. And my job is to give you the map, the keys in the car. Your job is to drive it. Okay. So I'm going to highly encourage you to go back and rewatch this, listen to this, go get a genetic profile. It's a one-time in your life test, but make sure you run a genetic profile that gives you an application of action steps. I'm very partial to the Biolimitless DNA Discovery test kit because it does just that. It's also 99.7% accurate across the board. And then change your lifestyle. Do the elimination provocation diet. Add the nutraceuticals we discussed in this conversation today to your diet. And if you have these problems, the chances of your children having them are almost certain. So folks, until we meet again, go to our website. That's peptalk.world, peptalk.world. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share on all the social media podcasts because the truth will set you free, even though the evil people of the world most certainly don't want you to know the truth, because keeping you fat, sick, and nearly dead is a hell of a way to keep you enslaved, and it's a hell of a way to keep you using their medications and drugs that, aren't really helping you in the first place. So folks, until we meet again, I'm Dr. Eric Naputi. God bless you, God bless America, and God bless the world. Stay smart out there, and I'll see you next time. Be well.